Dziękuję bardzo. To dla mnie spory zaszczyt.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm privileged to speak before such a distinguished audience, and therefore thank you very much again for the invitation. I come from a country where religious freedom was appreciated throughout the ages and was also cultivated as something that is due to every person. And that's why, over the ages, Poland was home to those Jews that were exiled from different places of Europe and for the children of Reformation from Czechia, for example. You mentioned persecution, and also thanks to European treaties after the war, religious freedom is guaranteed in Poland. But in Poland, we are appalled by religious murders across the world and attempts to limit religious freedom in democratic countries of the West. Freedom is an attractive concept, almost magical, because freedom is associated with progress and self-fulfillment of man. And most political and social ideas refer to freedom to different nations, social groups, and etc., etc. The state of religious freedom, I think, is illustrated in a number of reports. And the previous speaker mentioned the American report. There is another report, Religious Freedom in the World, report from 2014, drafted by commentators and journalists, and it speaks about various concerns about religious freedom in 116 countries, and this religious freedom is threatened in 60% of countries in the world. And this means that it is an urgent and very serious issue. This report talks of 20 countries who are intolerant. In 14 of those, persecution is perpetrated, and such countries as Afghanistan, Central African Republic, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Maldives, Nigeria, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. According to one of the authors of this report, in the period under consideration, religious freedom has deteriorated globally, and there is a trend to marginalize religious communities. This document also claims that lots of leaders are not interested in protecting religious freedom, and which means violating the fundamental right of religious freedom. This also leads to violating other rights. And, for example, in the Middle East, people are discriminated and massacred. Fidesz estimates that from the beginning of this millennium, 263 clergymen were killed all over the world, including Europe. In 2015, in Brussels, a priest was killed, and very recently, in July, a French priest was killed in Rouen. So the phenomenon is widespread and strengthening. And this is confirmed in a report published in August by the U.S. Department of State. It's a report on religious freedom for 2015. It's a very detailed report. It covers some 200 countries, including Western countries, but excluding the United States. And it mentions the same countries as the Vatican report. It also covers continuing persecution of Christians in China. Apparently, crosses were removed from some 1,500 churches. And also religious freedom activists are being persecuted in China. This report also calls for protecting religious minorities in Ukraine, in the Crimea. It's also about persecuting the indigenous Tatar population. But Russian authorities are also discriminating against its own religious minorities under the pretext of fighting with extremisms. And in fact, this is quite well known from history, because the Russian Orthodox Church was normally very indifferent and was cooperating with authorities, whether the Tsars or the communists or the present authorities, irrespective of what these authorities were doing. And that's why the Russian Orthodox Church is now in a privileged position. The U.S. Department of State also blames ISIS for persecution against different ethnic minorities, and says that this can lead to destruction, because it's not only about killing people; it's also about exterminating culture. And the report also underlines that ISIS can eliminate and remove Christians from areas where they lived for the last 2,000 years. For example, in Iraq, from over 1 billion people was reduced to 250,000 people. In Syria, from 2 million to 600,000. Aleppo is a dramatic example where only 60,000 Christian believers live, and compared to 400,000 before the war. Pakistan is another case in point. After the blasphemy law was introduced, which even provides for the death penalty for blasphemy. Even more restrictive regulations are applicable in Saudi Arabia, where blatant violations of religious freedom is taking place. According to OSCE, there are different kinds of discrimination. Discrimination can be classified as premeditated or not premeditated. And given that, international community should provide to all minorities freedom to exercise their religions based on the values that our societies are based. The international community must confirm the right to religious freedom and condemn any forms of discrimination and intolerance. It's not only about unjust laws, such as the blasphemy laws, but also the scourge of illegal trafficking of arms, which destabilizes Middle East. Since we are in Italy, it's worth to quote Mario Mauro. He said that the root causes lie in religious and ideological sphere. And these root causes also exist in our democratic Western societies. So we are between the rock and the hard place. On the one hand, we have these autocratic authorities, and on the other hand, lay culture. So when democracy is relativized, then Christians are being deprived of the right to be a special community. The time is running out. And therefore, to conclude, I'd like to say that humanity must search for meaning and identity. The search for meaning is as important as life, and it is then illustrated in convictions. Religious freedom is the freedom to pursue those convictions, and it should be based on the inalienable right of man. The right to religious freedom is inalienable, and therefore we should
Dziękuję bardzo.